Hi to everyone listening tonight. My name is Miss Black and myself and Miss McHugh will be delivering one of 2 online lessons on raising attainment and study skills. Tonight we are focusing on effective methods of studying and how to implement these effectively. The aim of tonight is to help you feel confident that your child is aware of key study skills. First of all, I've noted a few practicalities to get you started. Research has shown that trying to eat healthily and regularly can help with this. Aiming to get between 8 and 10 hours of sleep every night and having a regular bedtime, which means, for example, being in bed by 9 o'clock. We understand that there are reasons why this changes, for example at the weekends, but it's good advice to try and stick to this and stick to the same time every night as much as possible, especially during the week. Drinking water regularly is not only good for you, but it should help with your concentration too. And trying to find a quiet environment, which sometimes might be harder than other times if you've got a very busy household, for example, or lots of siblings round about, but just as often as you can to find a nice quiet place to study will help as well. So secondly, we would like to briefly touch on phones and other screens such as iPads. Mr. Johnson and Mrs. Wallace will have spoken about this in detail, but just to remind you that it does lower concentration, increases your fear of missing out, reduces memory and makes you sleep worse. So I'm very realistic about this. I'm a mum myself and I know how important phones are to young people. However, it's so important that we encourage them to put their phones away at times of study. So this is what everyone's used to doing in school. When they're in class, they don't have their phones out. So it's really important just to put your phone away when you're going for your 30 minutes of study, or for your time when you're doing your piano practice, or for other time to read over some notes or read your book for English, for example. You can then come back to your phone after when you're having a break. Next, we are going to look at preparation. We will look at a simple timetable. This will help you to plan out your week, and this will include not only your schoolwork but other activities too. Timetabling. We have added an example of a timetable for you on the next slide. The times are, however, just as an example, and what is really important here is that you keep it to short sessions. So for example, 30 minutes and then take a break. It has been proven time and time again that you produce better work in short spells with breaks in between. You'll notice an example of a timetable that you have space for different clubs and for time off too. It should also be noted that there are some weeks where you may have more homework than others, and you should have room to change that within your timetable by adding in extra, for example, or having some more free time. So having missed a long period off school due to lockdown, we might also be out of practice when working at home, and a plan for the week will help us focus on what we have to do. New first year pupils are also facing a whole new timetable with lots of new subjects after being off school for a long time, and we really think it's important to not put too much pressure on ourselves to be spending hours on end at home working. We want you to enjoy Bishopriggs Academy as much as you're working hard. So when we're looking at studying in S1 to S3, we will be looking at focusing on up-and-coming assessments, practice for the senior phase, particularly in S3 when you will have transition exams, and making sure that we undertake around an hour a day of homework or study in S1 and S2. In case you have to self-isolate, we have put together the next section with an example of a timetable if you were at home self-isolating, and also an example of a blank one for you to fill in yourself. Ideally, if you do need to self-isolate, it is wise to try and stick to the school day on your normal school days, Monday through to Friday. Teachers will be putting work on Show My Homework and Teams, and that is why we have put this together to show you an example of a typical school day. Therefore, on the blank timetable on the next slide, you can fill this in yourself as close to your normal day as possible. You might find you have some changes, so for example, if you were to finish a subject sooner, then there is always some scope there just to do some extra revision, to read over your notes for example. So when self-isolating, we also don't want to put pressure on young people, so if there's anything at all you're unsure of, it's absolutely fine for you to leave it until you come back to school, but that hopefully shouldn't happen often.
What is effective studying? It's common for pupils to come to teachers and say that they simply don't know how to study. In these next few slides, we will look at how we can study effectively, look at methods that we can use to study, and identify what works best for you. It is important that you remember these 4 key points: understand, condense, memorise, and review. It's really important that we understand what we're learning, because ultimately we cannot study if we don't know what things mean. Ask questions, especially in class. We as your teachers are here to help you in any way that we can. So if something's not clear for you, don't be scared to put your hand up and ask for a little bit of extra help. Discuss with other students. You can do this through group work or by doing homework together. Use notes and your jotter. Look over your notes from class. This helps keep things fresh in your head, and also don't forget to look over your notes and jotter when completing homework. It's much easier to study if we condense our notes. So here are different methods that we can use to do this. You can use cue cards, flowcharts, flashcards, bullet points, and mind maps. We will go through some of these on the next few slides. Highlighting. It is important to only highlight key points, otherwise it loses its value. Using one of your subject jotters, try to highlight the key points from your last lesson. The key here is to condense your notes into key points, such as subject headings, important names, or dates. The next method we are going to talk about is mind maps. Here we have a mind map for supporting study. So if you look at the arrows coming out of the bubble, it focuses on all the key points that allow us to support study, such as managing time, getting organised, keeping well, and useful websites such as Go, Teams and BBC Bitesize. Now, can you think of a subtopic that you find particularly challenging? Let's try and plan a mind map for this topic. Flashcards are an effective revision tool to use to help you memorise and understand key information. Once you have made your flashcard, you should revisit it regularly and have someone test you on it. A flashcard should have a key idea on one side, but have detailed information on the other side. Here we have an example of a flashcard on why liberal reforms were passed. So that would be the front of the flashcard, and then the back of the flashcard looks at key points. So we look at national security and efficiency, Booth and Rowntree, influence from abroad, and new liberalism. Another method that we can use to help us study is by memorising. You can do this through the use of mnemonics, by repetition, so by continuously writing something out over and over, or by reading it back to yourself over and over. You can do this also by recording information and listening back to it. This is useful to do before bedtimes or possibly when you're on the bus on the way into school. Once you feel like you know something inside out, start to review it. You can do this by doing a quick quiz that you make up yourself, or you can look for ones on Kahoot. You can teach someone else in your house or get someone else to test you. You can also use flashcards for this. This lets you know if your studying has been effective and makes you feel more confident. Finally, it's important to highlight that we all learn differently. Some of us may be auditory learners, some of us may be visual learners, and some of us may be tactile learners. If you're an auditory learner, you learn by listening. You could try to read your notes aloud and discuss with other people. Another method you could use is by recording key points and playing them back to yourself. If you're a visual learner, you learn by seeing. You could colour code your notes or draw diagrams to help highlight key points. If you're a tactile or kinesthetic learner, you learn by doing. You could learn by using role play or teach others what you are learning. It's good to try all of these techniques and work out what works best for you. And remember, everyone learns differently. But it's really important that we try to identify this now to get the most out of our studying early on. We hope you found tonight's workshop beneficial and that you are now able to identify 4 steps to effective studying and understand how to effectively study. Thank you for listening.